It's 6:30 in the morning, people. My brain's not working. I'll do the 6:30. Oh, Christ. And welcome back. All right, today is the 20th of July, and I'm about to head out to go and meet up with some friends and do a little bit of stitching and all the things. It is absolutely freezing, as you can see by the back window. It is frosted. I'm going to try and get out of my driveway by using my side mirrors, which is always great, but it is below zero right now, and I've got a couple of hour drive to go and see my friends, and then I'm going to go and do a little bit of craft shopping because I've got to get some stuff before I go on the cruise just to fix a dress and whatnot. But today I am, this is a book that I'm reading for the Serialized Book Club. We needed to read the second book in a series, which was one of the prompts, and because we had a bingo board this time round, and basically, yeah. So this one is Joy Detman. Joy Detman is an Australian author, and it is part of the Woody Creek series. Now, I read the first one, which is called Pearl in a Cage, back in August last year during the Amazing Readathon, and Chrissy put me onto this particular author and said that she thinks that I'd really like her because I do like historical fiction, and I haven't read a lot of Australian historical fiction because, you know, it's just who I am, apparently. But anyway, I ended up picking that up and really enjoyed it, and subsequently I've managed to find, I think, nearly all of the books. I think there's 9 in the series, 8 or 9 in the series, and as I said, this is the second one. This one's called Thorn on a Rose, and basically it's just basically going to be following, it's still going to be following the same characters, I believe. There are all the same people in it, and now I just turned the audio on because I got this through my library, and it actually gives you a recap of all the characters and the main prominent characters in it in the beginning of the book. I didn't listen to it all. I'm going to start it now. The audiobook at my current speed will go for about 10 hours, and I've got a 5-hour round trip today, so that's pretty cool. So I'll get a fair chunk of this done today, and yeah, on the way there and on the way home. So I'm looking forward to listening to it, and if I remember correctly, when I haven't done a recap on the other one, and I probably could because the book is in my library, so for the borrow box, so I could probably just pick up the last chapter and listen off. But if I remember correctly, the main protagonist of that book had left or was getting on a train to leave Woody Creek. So, and apparently this follows on from it. So we'll have to wait and see what it's all about. Of course, you know, as per usual, I'll do my weekly check-ins and all that. My midpoint check-in. It's 6:30 in the morning, people. My brain's not working. I'll do the 6:30. Oh, Christ. I will do a midpoint check-in and let you know if I'm still enjoying the story, and I really did enjoy the first one, so I'm hoping to continue on. Joy Detman just has a really unique way of telling stories, and really draws you in as well to the story, which is absolutely fabulous. All right, so I'm going to head off. As I said, I've got a 2.5-hour drive to get there, and then I've got a 2.5-hour drive to get back, so I should be about the midpoint when I get back here. I'll see how we go. I might even check in when I get to my destination and let you know how I'm going. All right, I'm going to head off. You have a fabulous day, and I'll see you in the next check-in. As you can see, it's pretty icy. I've had to pull on the side of the road to get the wipers going and try and defrost and heat up the windscreen, but that is the sunrise on... Hi everybody, and welcome back. All right, I am here to wrap up for Joy Detman's Thorn on a Rose, and this is book 2 in the Woody Creek series, and I am using this for a serialized one, which was our bingo board, which is to read a book second in a series. So this one fits the prompt. Anyway, when I talked about it in my last clip, I didn't really give you an idea of what this book was about. So basically, as I said, this is book 2, so it's going to be hard to talk about book 2 without giving some things away from book 1, but believe me, there is so much happening in these books that you don't need to worry about that. Anyway, so we're following the story of Jenny Morrison, and Jenny Morrison, we meet her in the first book, and if you want to see my thoughts on it, I think it's maybe in an Amazing Readathon vlog from last year, but overall, by the time I'm finished this series, I'll probably end up talking about the series as a whole anyway. But there's 8 in the series, I believe, 7 or 8 in the series. I think I've got 5 of the books on my bookshelf right now. I've just been slowly getting them when I go to secondhand bookstores and stuff like that, because they're not cheap to buy here in Australia. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So we're essentially following the story of Jenny Morrison, okay? And Jenny Morrison comes into the story in book 1 as a way of a baby, and she is basically a child that a woman is found beside the railway line, and she's the resulting child from this woman, and the woman dies just not long after childbirth. And basically at the same time, this woman is taken to Gertrude, the local midwife, and at the same time the midwife's daughter Amber is actually having a baby that is essentially didn't survive, okay? And Amber has had a series of stillborns, and tragically the baby's died not long after the baby has been born. And so Amber is severely mentally ill, and you find out as the book goes on how mentally ill she is. And so they basically take this baby, the police officer who knew about the woman that was found beside the railway track, and a few other people as well, basically Jenny had been born, and she was crying, and another woman heard her, and that's how they found the woman beside the railway track, and subsequently took her to Gertrude. Gertrude is the main anchor in the story, as well as Jenny, and then there's a few side characters that are connected to Gertrude, and slowly but surely we start to work out what's gone on and everything like that. And so we're following along Jenny Morrison's life, and because they've actually taken Jenny and put her into the custody, and they've essentially forged documents and everything, but this is a small country town over the Great Dividing Range west of Melbourne, and basically they're not being governed out there at this particular time. This is in the early 1900s, around the Great War and the Great Depression and all that sort of stuff. So we're moving through the timeline pretty quickly, and all that sort of stuff. Now, I am actually listening to this on audiobook. It is a little bit hard to listen to the audiobook at times because Vern, one of the main characters in this right now, in the first two books anyway, is very loud. When the narrator is actually talking, because he yells at everybody. He just yells at everybody, and that comes across. You get used to it after a while, but it is a bit jarring at first. So turn the volume down is all I can say. But they forge the documents, and Jenny ends up in the care of Norman and Amber. They take her on as their own, and they have another daughter named Sissy. And the way they paint the picture of this family, Norman's family especially, Sissy is a very unlikable character. You'll hate her from the get-go, but you're supposed to. She's not a nice human, nor is her mother. And in some cases, in a lot of books, it's usually the women that are downtrodden. In this one, Norman is actually downtrodden in the first one, okay, and still downtrodden in this one as well. And he's a man that's just given up. Basically, he's married Amber, she's mentally ill, she's verbally abusive, she's physically abusive to the children, but she idolizes Sissy, and that is Cecilia is the one that I don't like. I don't like her character. She's mean. She calls Jenny a stray and all that sort of stuff, because people are starting to talk, and small towns have gossip and all that sort of stuff. So basically we are following Jenny's story, and she's got this beautiful voice as we're going into it. This is Pearl in the Cage that I'm talking right now, and we learn that she's got a beautiful voice. She sings like an angel. Everybody loves her, and it plays out through her life and all that sort of stuff. But there's little connections she makes all over the book with different people, and of course Gertrude absolutely loves her, treats her as her own and all that. Norman absolutely loves her, treats her really good. Amber, however, is really ugly human being, but suffering from mental health, and is quite abusive towards Jenny, and Jenny just feels like she's on the outs, that no one loves her and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so we get to that, and there's a catastrophic thing that happens to Jenny in the first book that changes her directory of her life, and how her life is going to play out and all that sort of stuff. So yeah. Okay, now what I will say about Joy Detman as well, and I think I'm positive I've done Meet the Author on Joy Detman and probably talked about that book in there as well. But I've read other ones of Joy Detman's, not just this one, since then, and I can honestly say that this woman has such a way of telling a story that she keeps you like nothing is really happening. You are just in these people's lives. It's like a slice of life, small country town, Australian country town, and their attitudes and their mentality and their way of life, and all that sort of stuff is just built into this. This woman is just a great storyteller. It's like you're sitting around a fire and she's spinning you a yarn, and it's just like, oh my god, I just love it. And that's what happened yesterday. I picked this book up and I forgot how much of a storyteller she was, because these books were recommended to me from my friend Chrissy, who picked my TBR last year, and that's how I came across Joy Detman. And since then, I've read a few other stories of hers. Some have been okay, but they're all the same sort of thing. She just knows how to tell a story, and it keeps you turning the pages. Nothing's really happening. Like, I'm not a huge fan of slices of life. I'm happy to go into a small town and all that sort of stuff, but I'm not sort of into where we're following someone's life and how it's playing out. And that's what is happening in these books. I don't know what's going to happen in book 3. It sort of ended where, like book 1, she wanted to get out of the town and all that sort of stuff and whatnot. And I won't say whether she did or not, but we're back in Woody Creek again. And again, we're following, there's all this stuff happening. Vern's playing a bigger part in the story this time as well. And like, you just want to kick him in the pants, and he's misogynistic, chauvinistic ways. Like, dude, stop it. And that, like, and it's not just about Jenny. He thinks this about most women. So if you don't like that sort of stuff, you're probably going to have a hard time with this book. But just trust me, Joy Detman actually has a great way of spinning a yarn. As I said, I'm not a fan of slice of life, and so when I realised it was going to be slice of life, I didn't know how I was going to get along with this, but I immediately knew that I wanted to read the rest of this series, and I'm so glad that I've picked the second one up. I'm probably going to pick up another one next month as well, because as I said, I've got a few of them on my shelf, and also they're in my library as well, so they're good for driving and stuff like that. Like, you don't have to focus too hard on a magic system or anything like that. Definitely historical fiction. This one is around the Second World War, but we're not following soldiers or anything like that. There's not a lot of war talk. It's in the background, and we're just following Jenny and her struggles and stuff like that, and and how that event that happened in the first book has affected her here. I'm totally blown away. I've actually given this 4 stars. I've read it in a day. Like, that tells you something, that I could not put it down. I was actually pissed off when I got to my destination that I had to turn the book off. Like, granted, it was right when something was about to happen, but I was pissed off that I sat in the car for 10 minutes when I got there. I was supposed to be stitching to keep listening to the book, and then as soon as I got in the car again, I turned it straight back on, and I listened to it all the way home. I didn't put the radio on, didn't put music on. Sometimes I'll do that. I'll switch it up and all that sort of stuff. Didn't do that. Listened to it while I was going around the craft store, which I didn't take any footage of because I was listening to the book. So I am just absolutely loving it, and I probably will end up picking up next one, and I'm just going to start really pushing through these books because I'm really keen to see how the story is going to play out. Again, as I said, it's all centered around Gertrude is one of the main anchor points of the story, and so is Jenny in this, and we've got a lot of other things that are happening and all that sort of stuff. All right, so I have now gushed about this book, and it's not a 5-star book. It could be in someone else's eyes. For me, it's not a 5-star book and the only reason is because I'm not usually a huge fan of slice of life, and I really don't know how to rate a slice of life. If I think about it, and I couldn't put this book down, I just wanted to read it. Half of the book I listened to, the other half I actually immersive read it. I had a good time while I was reading it. I thoroughly enjoyed the story. I was satisfied when I closed the book. Really, I should be giving this a 5-star, but honestly, and so, you know what? I'm going to give this 5 stars. I gave the first one 4 stars, and I think I'm still sitting at a 4-star. I think the series overall, unless something drastically changes in her way of storytelling and stuff like that, it's going to be a 4-star series for me. It is historical fiction. I know that's not everyone's jam. It is set around, it does move through the decades. It is going to be a saga at the end of the day, and it is slice of life, small country town, and their antiquated ways of thinking and all that sort of stuff around Indigenous people. There is language that's in here that's probably not going to be people are not going to be a fan of that. It's used in the for that time, how they speak. The whole book is set up how they would have been speaking at that time, so you have to take that with a grain of salt. That is in there and all that sort of stuff, and if that's not for you, don't pick it up. That's simple. But I'm telling you, you're missing out on that. Aside, you're missing out on a pretty darn good storyteller. And Joy Detman has a ton of other books. She's got short stories and all that sort of stuff that you could sink your teeth into. And all that sort of stuff. So Jacaranda Blue comes to mind. I read that last year. That was a fabulous book as well. And again, that small town, country town, there's a bit of violence towards women, downtrodden, this is your place, this is where you need to be. There's a bit of religion in it and all that sort of stuff. I don't read, and it's not great. They don't portray it as something good either. And all that sort of stuff. But it's not basically saying that the church is bad or anything like that. It's just that particular person is not that great. Do you know what I mean? It's not troweling out the church or the structure of the church or anything like that. But there's always some sort of religion based in it. So Norman in these ones is very heavily into religion, and he's a very religious man. And in Blue Jacaranda is the same sort of thing. And then there's I think it's something sound. Is it Sound of Silence? No, that's the song. Silent Inheritance, that's what it's called. That was a very interesting book as well. There wasn't any religion in that one that I remember, but I gave both of those books 4 stars because Joy Detman is just a fabulous storyteller. All right, so I have gushed enough about Joy Detman. What other books have I read? Well, I finished Screenwriter. I had a really, really good reading time the other day. I finished Screenwriter. This is book 3. I was pretty happy with this book. It was a little bit slow to begin with, and I did struggle with it at the beginning, but I persevered. I listened to the audio with this. I ended up, and I think because we're breaking it up into chunks, I keep getting taken out of the story, which is fine, and I'm happy to do that. But I think with this particular one, I got behind on it, and I managed to just basically read the whole lot. I ended up reading like 300 pages in one hit, and I think that made it a lot better for that second half of the book, because so much was happening in the second part of the book. There's some really good stuff around the horses in the fields, and all that sort of stuff. Like, we get to know why the horses are the way they are, and how they're selected, because we meet the people who supply the green riders with the horses. That's probably my most favorite part in the book. But there's also other elements that are being brought into it that I'm really enjoying as well, because we had the Berry sisters come back into it for a little while, and I really enjoyed them in the first book, and I'm sort of curious to see if they're actually going to be a lot more dominant in the story as we go. As I said, I have finished. Obviously, I was listening to the audiobook, so I haven't taken my little green tidbits out of it now. So now basically what I'm going to do is order the next one. I've got book 4 sitting there ready to go, so I'm going to order book 5 and get that on its way. But overall, I'm really liking the series. Like, we're 3 books in now. I think we've got another 5 to go. We're about to start book 4. So once I'm finished that, we'll be officially halfway through. I'm enjoying the story. I don't want to put it down. It is very Wheel of Time-esque in a way that, you know, we've got, but a simpler version, and it's not the same. It's definitely not the same, because we've got a woman protagonist in this, and you know, like, it's definitely not the same, but it is esky. Okay, it is a little bit Wheel of Time-esque, and I think that's why I'm enjoying it, because I absolutely loved Wheel of Time. And I think for me, like, that I can read fantasy books and all that sort of stuff, but I think I like the long series fantasy books, because, you know, you're in that world a little bit longer, and that's why I'm enjoying this. And I'm so glad that I decided to pick this up in the end, and because I read the first one as a Discord members pick, which we didn't do this year. I might bring that back next year, but we'll see how we go. So yeah, so I'm pretty glad that we've got a whole heap of us are reading this, and we've all got varying different thoughts and all that sort of stuff as well. The other book that I finished this week as well, which I put up here, and I've still left my bookmarks in them and all that sort of stuff. I've got all books everywhere right now, so I'm basically just pulling all these books out that I am reading. So as you know, let me put that back. As you know, we're reading the Poppy War trilogy at the moment. We're doing that in July and August. So we've already started the second one. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm really happy that I've picked it up. I'm reading them on my Kindle because I don't want to wreck these ones, because we have them signed. So these ones are my editions that are signed that I don't want to sort of read, but they're sort of floating around everywhere. I have not started a second one yet, so I am a little bit behind with that, but I will say that she was a little bit whiny to begin with, and she sort of was driving me a little bit mental at like Rin, the main character, and some of the things that she does and her judgment is a little bit questionable at times, and I think, why are you doing this to yourself? So yeah, so basically there's that, but I got past that, because then things started to happen and we're starting to learn a little bit more. I don't find it very info dumpy. A couple of people have said that they found there's some points where it's info dumpy. I'm not finding that. And we're having some, like, a little bit of time jumps and all that sort of stuff throughout the first half of the book. So it moves through the timeline pretty quickly, and then we're straight into the war, basically. And we're learning more and more about Rin and her capabilities and the people around her as well, and whether she is or she isn't. And, you know, there's all these things happening. I don't want to say too much because I'll end up spoiling it for some people. But what I'm liking about this is just, I'm really getting more appreciation for, the more I read of R.F. Kuang, the more I appreciate her writing style and her ability to switch it up, and you know, like, this is a fantasy book and it's very Chinese law heavy. I don't know whether that is actual fact or not, whether that is like the actual fact that they are definite law in the Chinese culture and all that sort of stuff. I'll probably have to do a little bit further research on that. But as far as the mythology behind it and the folklore behind it and all that sort of stuff, I'm feeling really good about it. It flows nicely. I don't feel overwhelmed by it, as I do sometimes with Greek mythology. I get overwhelmed with all the gods and all that sort of stuff. This is definitely spaced out a little bit more. Her writing is beautiful as usual. Could be slightly biased, but you know, I do love R.F. Kuang. I've loved everything that she's written so far. So yeah, so I'm hoping that it continues on with the same vein. Now, as I said, I am behind with the second one. The second one is The Dragon Republic. I am probably starting this on Monday. And so, yeah, by the time you see this video, I'm probably going to be finished this book, because I think I am like 3 or 4 days behind. So I'm going to get a good chunk of it done, and I'm looking forward to doing that. But the Poppy War, I've actually given 3.75 rating for this one. Not quite a 4-star, but, you know, only because Rin was driving me a little bit balmy in the beginning. But I do expect that I will overall love the series, because I'm really liking it now as well. So the other book that I'm going to talk about, I'm just going to burn through these ones. This one is one that I am going to be talking about in more depth in my Buzzwordathon reading vlog. So there is that. I will talk about that. But I have actually finished this one. I wasn't a bit like feeling a little bit slumpy and all that sort of stuff there, but I have managed to finish quite a number of books. The other one that I have finished and I'm going to talk about is The Hiding Place. This is a Christian fiction. Yes, I do read a Christian fiction occasionally, even though I am not Christian, because my belief is that we should not disregard anything just because it's not in your wheelhouse. So I picked this one up. I got it from the King of Roy Book Fest. It was on my TBR for this month, and I found the audiobook for this, so that was a great help with being able to read. I read half the book with my eyeballs, the other half I read with the audiobook, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed this. Now, normally when you go into a book that is centered around, let me just get a little bit more comfortable, is centered around the Second World War and the Nazis and all that sort of stuff, it's usually from either the Nazis' point of view, okay, the soldiers and all that sort of stuff, or it's from the ones that I have read anyway, whether it be fiction, non-fiction, whatever, is always, you know, of someone that is in a concentration camp, the horrificness that they went through and all the things that come with that. This, however, is from civilians' point of view that are not in the army, not in the concentration camps, but are living in an occupied part of their part of the country. And so this is set in Haarlem in Holland, and basically we are, what was her name? Corey. It's the author because it's a memoir. Corey and her sisters and her father are owners of a watchmaking business, and subsequently as time goes by and the occupation and the Nazis are starting to victimize the Jews and all that stuff a lot more, Corey inadvertently ends up in the underground movement to the resistance and helping to hide Jews and get them out and all that sort of stuff. Now, I was quite surprised. This was published back in 1972, I believe, or 71, and it's sold over 30 million copies and is still a bestseller. Now, there is a movie that I want to watch, but I have to rent it. So I'm going to wait till it comes onto the streaming service, and I'll probably end up talking about this book again. Right now, this book is going to be winging its way off to New South Wales for my friend to read, and I'm hoping she can get through this one because I sent her a book about the resistance and she was very interested in reading, but she ended up having to put it down because it was actually causing her some quite high anxiety and all that sort of stuff, because her family was directly involved in the Second World War and in France, and also her grandfather was hidden. So I don't know how she's going to go with this one, but I'm going to send it to her. I said it is quite good, but what blew me away about this was the ability for her and her sister to rise above it and have faith in God that everything will work out okay. There's two other books that I've ordered and they're on their way from me. I got them off eBay. One's brand new, one's secondhand. But basically we're following this story of Corey, how she ended up in the underground resistance and how she was helping to hide the Jews, move them on, how they got ration books and, you know, forged papers and all that sort of stuff. And really they weren't hiding it as well as they thought they were. It's definitely a faith-based book because they ended up in jail, and basically they were helping women to keep their faith and all that sort of stuff, and just the things that they went through, and because subsequently they got caught and whatnot, and what happened to them and all that sort of stuff, and where she ended up at the end. So the next two books are one is before this book, but you can read them out of order because it's just in my father's house, and basically she talks about her childhood leading up to that point, and then there's after this book. And we then will find out what actually happened afterwards, because we get a taste of that during this book, because after everything, the war has ended and all that sort of stuff, everybody, got released and this, that and the other and whatnot. But then she tried to put into practice, and how she met people to put into practice what her sister wanted from all this and all that sort of stuff, and how they went about it and all that sort of stuff. And I believe that that's what that other book is at. And I forget the name. It's called Tramp for the Lord. So it tells you what happened after the events of The Hiding Place. When the war was over, Corey looks back and marvels at the extraordinary experience in her worldwide ministry of speaking and teaching, including her work for suffering people in Germany, and how she met and forgave one of the concentration camp guards. So I found that is quite interesting, because I feel like with these sort of books, with these memoirs and stuff like that, are centered around that. As I said, we get it from like the Nazis' point of view and the soldiers' point of view, and how they felt and all that sort of stuff of doing these war crimes and being forced to do these things. I mean, what were your options? Do it or die. That's the option I had. And then you've got on the other side of the scale, you've got the Jewish people that suffered such horrific things in that war, but then you very rarely get that side of it, you know, people in the resistance, or how the people of, you know, Holland were feeling, or France were feeling, and stuff like that. In my experience, I mean, I'm positive there are books out there, but I've just been slowly but surely coming across these secondhand. So I'm looking forward to reading more from this author and just understanding her mentality and her ability to forgive and to see the bigger picture, and, you know, to keep herself in check when she's got that self-doubt and all that sort of stuff. I mean, regardless of whether you're Christian or not, you can learn a lot from this book by being able to check yourself, you know, like, hey, I'm having doubt. I have to have faith that these things are going to work out, and that I know what I'm doing, or I know what God's doing, or I know what, you know, whatever deity you pray to, or whatever faith you're in, you know, the powers that be, or whatever the case may be. Like, it's a really good way to listen to your inner dialogue while you're reading this, because it triggers thoughts. Does that make sense? Like, it triggers thoughts, and you're like, okay, so what would I have done in this situation? And I know I can never actually put myself into that dire situation directly, but I can still fathom, you know, yeah, okay, I can see how you would want to check yourself and try to see a ray of hope when everything is such doom and gloom around you, and how you can rise above it, and you can, you know, and even when it come down to when a certain character in this passed away, and the serenity, instead of being, while she was devastated that this person passed away, she managed to rise above that and see the serenity on that person's face, that they were at peace, they had serenity about it. And, you know, regardless of whether you believe or not, you know, she believed it, and it helped her get through it. And it was just a really short, quick, in your face sort of book, but it was a good book to read, you know, like, and I highly recommend it to everybody. I don't generally rate non-fiction books, but if I was going to be rating it, this would definitely be a 4.5 star rating. That for me, it was just a little bit too much short, and everything moved very quickly, and I think maybe she might have glossed over a few things that could have been explored a bit better. So, you know, 4.5. But as I said, I don't normally rate this sort of stuff. I just the story alone was good enough to read. It's a memoir. It's someone's, you know, personal feelings about a situation they're in. You can never rate that. And, you know, you can never truly put yourself into that world and all that sort of stuff. So I managed to finish that as well. So overall, I've had a pretty good reading week, and I'm about to start my next week of reading, which is Leanne Moriarty, which will be the last week of July. So that was the third week of July, and I went from not really reading much at all, not really talking about any books or anything like that, to just smashing them out. This one was I finished in the second week, but as I said, I'm going to talk about that in another video in a little bit more in depth. I've still got 2 of those books to read for that. I've got one on I managed to get on Libby, so I'm going to listen to that, and I have, what was the other one that I had to read? I can't remember now, but anyway, they will be in my Buzzwordathon. But that has been my week so far. Like, for the second last week of July. This coming week I'll be packing to get into cruise mode and holiday mode and all that sort of stuff, so that's going to be very, very exciting. So I'm looking forward to that. So as always, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate you being here with me for this vlog, and as always, keep turning those pages. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all the things. Come over and see me over on Patreon in the friend zone, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.